I'm doing the AAAS Mass Media Fellowship, which is a science writing internship for mostly PhD students. And today I want to tell you the story about how I found out where I was going to be working and reveal the location of what news organization I am going to be working at this summer. Between the time that I submitted my application and when I found out where I was going to be working for the summer was quite a while. So I submitted my application on January 14th, which was the day before the deadline. And then I didn't hear anything from AAAS until February 5th. February 5th, I got an email and it told me that I was a semi-finalist, but there were still some steps I needed to take in order to become a finalist. So after I got that semi-finalist email, we were told to fill out a questionnaire, and then I'll talk about what the questionnaire had in it. And then we also had to get our recommenders to fill out a few questions to send to AAAS. In the email saying that I was a finalist, I had 2 tasks to complete. I had to make sure that my recommenders were correct and all their contact information was correct, and I had to fill out a questionnaire. The questionnaire asked for contact information, whether I was still interested in the opportunity, and then we also had to confirm that we'd be able to attend both the training sessions at the beginning of the summer, the full summer internship, and the wrap-up in Washington, D.C. at the end. Then they asked a few preference questions. So they wanted to know if they would have to consider whether public transport was available at the site in case we didn't have a car. They asked if we had any strong preferences for doing written journalism, radio journalism, or video journalism projects, and we could rank whether we were very interested, somewhat interested, or not interested in each of those. Then we could also put in geographic preferences for locations or specific site locations if we wanted to name a specific news organization. I filled out the questionnaire just fine, and it was the day before the deadline, and I realized that my own PhD advisor hadn't actually filled out the recommender questions that he had to fill out, and I was kind of freaking out that he hadn't submitted it on time. Luckily, we figured it all out. We had to get an email sent to him. It had gone to the wrong place and he had just never seen it. Because of the whole email debacle and my advisor not really getting the notification that he had to fill this out, I did get access to the questions that he had to fill out just in case he wasn't able to access the system. So I'm going to read them out in case any of your recommenders want to know what they are for future years if they don't change in the future. So the first question was, should one or more of the societies listed below take an interest in supporting the applicant and why? And the societies that are listed are the different sponsors of the AAAS Mass Media Fellowship. So these include the American Chemical Society, the American Geophysical Union, American Mathematical Society, American Physiological Society, American Statistical Association, American Society of Plant Biologists, the IEEE of the USA, and the Society for Industrial and Applied Mathematics. Because I specifically study math education research, I think my advisor put that some of the math societies would be good to sponsor me, but I did end up getting sponsored by AAAS itself and not any of these other organizations. So if your research aligns with one of these societies in particular, it would be good for your recommender to consider that society as a sponsor for you. The second question is to describe your work with the applicant, parentheses, research, academic, communication, etc. Highlight the applicant's contribution, role, and accomplishments. So this is where it's really great for your recommender to really know you really well and know what work you've been doing most recently. Next question, I think it's question 3, is describe why you think the fellowship is a good match for the candidate's talents and career goals. You also want to have a recommender that knows what your career goals are. So I have actually talked pretty extensively with my advisor about my desire to do science communication, and I also sent him my application materials that were explaining why I wanted to do this fellowship in the first place so that he could work off of that when he was writing his recommendation. And the last question is describe any additional information that you think the selection committee should take into account. So if there's anything else that the recommender thinks that AAAS should know about you, they can put it in there. So those are all the questions that the recommenders have to fill out. I hope that's helpful for you. But all of that was February 5th, and I think we had to have it done by February 13th. After I filled out that survey and had the recommenders complete everything, I didn't hear anything from AAAS for almost a month. So I finally got an email on March 11th, almost a whole month later. This email on March 11th was really good news. It let me know that I was a finalist. But being a finalist still doesn't guarantee that I will be matched to a site. In that same email on March 11th, they told us that we would be hearing in the second half of March to know more about our status with the fellowship. On March 17th, less than a week later, I received an email from an editor at one of the AAAS Mass Media Fellowship sites, and he wanted to know if he could set up a phone call so he could quote, better understand my hopes for the summer if selected, end quote. So I was so excited. I'm like, wow, this site might actually be interested in me. Maybe I would work there. I hurriedly sent back an email saying, yeah, I'm available like today at this time. But then I forgot to include my phone number. I was just like so overwhelmed and wanted to like make a really good first impression, and then had to follow up immediately afterwards saying what my phone number was. I spent the hours in between getting that email and the time that I had said I was available just researching the site, because I was not as familiar with it as I was with some of the other news organizations that fellows have been placed at in the past. This research also included emailing my journalism professor saying I had gotten this email just to ask her what she thought about this site, and she responded back very quickly and told me that this site had always had really great fellows in the past and that was really good news. So even though it wasn't definitely one of my top picks for news sites, I got more and more excited about it as I was doing research and as I was talking to my professor about the site. I didn't actually end up talking to the editor until the next day, I think, and we ended up talking for about 15 minutes just on the phone. First, the editor explained a little bit more about how the site matching process worked, because having never done this fellowship application process before, I had no idea. So now next year you will know at least what he told me. So the way that the editor explained that it worked is that each news organization receives a list of names and applications from AAAS, and those news organizations have to go about ranking those names in terms of who they prefer most to come be their fellow. Then they do all those rankings, and they only have like maybe 48 hours or so to do those rankings and send them back to AAAS. And then AAAS kind of does all the logistical things with all of the rankings to figure out who is going to go where. The editor also told me that not all sites will reach out and contact participants. He just likes to do it so he can get a better sense of who the applicants are and whether they would be a good match for the site through talking with them beyond just their application. So after he explained all of this, he asked me a few questions. He asked me how I would feel about coming to this location, because I had not put it in like my preferred geographic locations or even site preferences that you could write about in the geographic preferences section of the questionnaire. I was very honest with him and told him that it wasn't at the top of my list, that I had preferred to go to a location closer to my family and friends back out in California. But after researching it, I had thought it would be a really good fit for me, both interest-wise and location-wise, and that I had heard a lot of good things and I would be excited to work there. After this question, I don't think he explicitly asked me like what story ideas I might have, but in those few hours of research that I had done, I had actually come up with a few, and so in the process of me clarifying what kinds of stories I might write for this news organization, I kind of listed off some of my story ideas. After he asked me how I felt about the site, I think I wanted to ask some clarifying questions about the kinds of things that I would be writing for the summer for this news organization. So because I have an education background, I asked him if I would be able to write some education stories. He said yes, and he said that there was another editor there that was doing some kind of education stories and that I could work a lot with them. I also asked whether I would be writing more local, regional, or national stories, and he said it was kind of a mix and it was really up to whatever I wanted to write about. And overall, he seemed like he was pretty impressed with the story ideas that he had suggested. I think I also mentioned one of the stories that he himself had worked on, so he seemed pretty impressed that I had done that level of research. So if you are lucky enough to get one of these interviews with a site before you are announced as an actual fellow, I highly recommend doing your research and prepping some story ideas for such a phone interview. Overall, I thought that the phone call went really well, and the editor seemed really nice. He even offered to look at apartments for me in case I didn't have time to go see them and check them out to make sure that they were safe and clean and all of that. After that phone call, in the next few days, I was a pretty anxious mess. Again, I had known that the sites had to submit their names in the next 48 hours, so I was just really anxious about hearing from AAAS about whether I was going to move on to the next stage or not, or whether I was just going to be not matched anywhere. On March 22nd, about 5 days after the last email I had received, I got another email from the director of the program from AAAS saying that I had to sign up for a phone call to discuss next steps. And I had no idea what next steps would mean. There was very little information about that, so I signed up for a slot. It was about half an hour. Signed up for a slot 3 days later, and in those 3 days, I was freaking out. I did not know what next steps meant, so I was completely overanalyzing all of the different meanings that it could have. It's like, maybe I'm not matched to any site at all, and the next step is just that I have to apply again next year. Maybe it meant that I was accepted at the site that I talked to. Maybe it was that I was accepted at a different site, which maybe I was hoping for. I don't know. I think I just really wanted to be accepted anywhere. But yeah, I was a mess for those 3 days just in between knowing about these next steps and the actual phone call. As you might already know by the other videos and maybe the beginning of this video, I did end up getting accepted and placed at a site, so it was very positive next steps. And in true Disney College Program fashion, where college students record their reactions to finding out whether or not they were accepted to go work at Walt Disney World, I also recorded the phone call to discuss these next steps. So here's the video recording of that. Okay. Oh my gosh, that's so exciting! I would love to work for them. I've gotten to work with an editor there before. I think I was trying to play it pretty cool while I was still on the phone, but I was absolutely overjoyed to be placed at Discover Magazine for the summer. So yay, that's my location! I will be working for Discover Magazine. Discover is not the site that had contacted me beforehand, so I had no idea that it was even an option that I could be at Discover Magazine. I mean, I knew that it was one of the sites that took AAAS Fellows, but I had no idea that they were even considering me, so that was just a really, really wonderful surprise. One of the other reasons I was so happy about being placed at Discover is because I had actually worked with the editor-in-chief before for the journalism class that I took during my PhD. So she helped edit the piece that I was working on. She was really wonderful and really easy to work with, so I'm even more excited to work with her for the rest of the summer. I also knew that Discover has a psychology and neuroscience section for their magazine, so I thought that that would be a really great fit for my background because I did cognitive science and neuroscience in undergrad. So I'm really excited to write about some of the topics that I studied a lot more in undergrad. Plus, it's a lot easier for me to move to the Discover location, because it's in Wisconsin, than it would have been for me to move to California, where I had originally thought that I wanted to be placed. So I will primarily be writing for the online version of the Discover magazine, as well as working on some print pieces. I will try and share as much of what I can, either behind the scenes or the finished pieces on Instagram, Twitter, or on this YouTube channel. So I will hope you will follow me along and let me know if you actually read any of those pieces. Let me know what you think. I also want to know what news organization you think would be the most fun to work at. If you have any other questions about this whole application process or timeline, feel free to comment below or contact me on social media at the PhD Princess. And while you're at it, follow Discover Magazine because maybe I will be helping them with their social media. Who knows? So that's all I have for you today. Thank you so much for watching this video. Keep on sciencing, and I will see you real soon.